Today we're going to talk about Republicans' desperation to claim that vaccine mandates are leading to worker shortages, and I interviewed the chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal, about the state of the reconciliation negotiations so far and what holdouts like Kirsten Sinema actually want. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen, and you're listening to No Lie. Just to break down where we are right now. Since the outset of this pandemic, Republicans have railed against masks, they've railed against stay-at-home orders, they've railed against shutting down mass gatherings, they've railed against vaccines. Every step of the way, Republicans, who claim to hate this pandemic, have done everything in their power to ensure that this pandemic can spread uninhibited. And so it shouldn't come as a surprise that they're now railing against vaccine mandates, claiming that they're leading to worker shortages. You've got people like Ted Cruz, who took to Twitter amid the news that 3,000 Southwest flights were canceled, to say, quote, Joe Biden's illegal vaccine mandate at work, we're short on pilots and air traffic controllers, hashtag thanks Joe. Republican Congressman Andy Biggs also tweeted, I stand with Southwest Airlines employees who are fighting against these mandates. This isn't about a vaccine, it's about freedom. Here's Tucker Carlson, who has the most watched show on the biggest conservative news outlet, claiming that anytime someone doesn't show up for work now, it's because of the vaccine mandate.
We can tell you that the shutdown of Southwest Airlines over the weekend was a direct consequence. It was a reaction to Joe Biden's vaccine mandates. There were more cancellations at Southwest Airlines today. No doubt there will be more to come, and not just of airline flights. At least 2 Amtrak train routes in the Northeast were canceled over the weekend, and so was a regularly scheduled car ferry in Washington state out to the San Juan Islands. In all cases, the employees in question, who have been told to get the shot, did not show up. Were these also protests against the Biden shot mandates? We can't say for certain. It certainly wouldn't surprise us.
We can't say for certain, but it certainly wouldn't surprise us. What? What does Tucker think the point of news is? Isn't it to answer the batshit crazy questions, not raise them? If you're wondering how this guy can get away with saying any random conspiracy theory on air, it's because his whole shtick is just, I'm just asking questions, which is a shield to be able to shove his propaganda down your throat while insulating himself from any accountability for just lying. Now, despite this coordinated barrage suggesting that workers are leaving en masse because freedom, that's not even close to the truth. A Southwest spokeswoman confronted the vaccine mandate rumors and said, quote, it's inaccurate. There's a lot of unfounded rumor and speculation circulating. The Southwest Pilots Association also said, quote, we can say with confidence that our pilots are not participating in any official or unofficial job actions. And of course, aside from Southwest literally admitting that the shortage has nothing to do with mandates, a couple more minor issues here. Like, for example, the fact that there is no vaccine mandate yet for Southwest, considering it doesn't go into effect until December 8th. Second, the problems that Southwest is dealing with right now are a continuation of the same problems that Southwest has faced for months. The airline lost nearly 28% of its workforce, 17,000 people, since it started offering buyouts for employees in June of 2020, which snowballed into major worker shortages today since travel's picking back up. So no, it's not the vaccine mandate that doesn't even go into effect for 2 months that's somehow responsible for delays that were put into motion over a year ago. And once the dust settles on the Southwest lie, Ted Cruz took to Twitter again to respond to a tweet about California's hospitals facing staffing shortages, saying, quote, maybe firing doctors and nurses during a pandemic because of an authoritarian vaccine mandate wasn't the best idea. Except the tweet he responded to included a link to an article that quite literally laid out the reasons. Quote, record patient volumes at the same time that many workers have been driven away from bedside by burnout, early retirement, and the seemingly unending stress of the pandemic, meaning this has nothing to do with vaccine mandates. If anything, it's the opposite. Healthcare workers are exhausted because of a never-ending pandemic that is only being prolonged because of the unvaccinated. Remember, 99% of those being hospitalized and dying are the unvaccinated. Vaccine mandates aren't pushing people away. Vaccine mandates would solve this problem, precisely because it's unvaccinated people who are bombarding the hospitals in the first place. And studies are showing the exact same thing. According to one study of over 20,000 healthcare workers from eClinical Medicine, 61% of workers reported fear of exposure or transmission of COVID, 49% reported feelings of burnout, 43% suffered work overload, and 38% reported having anxiety or depression, all of which are effects that are exacerbated by a pandemic that has put enormous, unrelenting pressure on healthcare workers. In other words, it's not the vaccine mandates that are leading to worker shortages, it's the consequences of no vaccine mandates that are pushing workers out of their jobs. Now, with all of that said, not only is Southwest not suffering mass resignations as a result of vaccine mandates, but virtually no company is. Here are the numbers from some companies that did impose a mandate. United Airlines imposed a vaccine mandate on its 67,000 employees, and in the end, it moved to terminate only 320 people, or 0.4%, meaning that 99.6% of people complied. In New York, healthcare workers were faced with a vaccine mandate with no option for weekly testing. 92% of nursing home staff and 92% of hospital staff complied, and no interruptions for patient care were reported. In Houston Methodist Hospital, when 25,000 workers were required to get vaccinated, a grand total of 153 people were fired for refusing to comply, or 0.6%. Blue Cross Blue Shield, based in Tennessee, which ranks 44 out of 50 in vaccination rate, imposed a vaccine mandate. Of 900 employees, 17 chose to leave, or just over 1%. Henry Ford Health System in Detroit imposed one on its 33,000 employees. 400 workers quit, or about 1% of the workforce. These numbers are replicated over and over and over again in every sector, and they come in the face of a barrage of desperate Republicans wailing about how workers would walk off the jobs in record numbers rather than surrender their freedom. Only, it turns out, workers are almost unanimously willing to get vaccinated rather than grandstand to score brownie points for their anti-vax Facebook group. And finally, one last point here about the claim that this vaccine mandate is illegal. Vaccine mandates are not only not illegal, but have a long history of being upheld in the courts. The Supreme Court upheld states' authority to enforce compulsory vaccination laws in the 1905 case Jacobson versus Massachusetts, and then reaffirmed that decision in a 1922 case. All 50 states, plus Washington, D.C., currently require school-age children to receive vaccines for school entry. And those are for government vaccine mandates. Private businesses have even more freedom to impose mandates, especially given OSHA's authority to issue emergency standards. Biden is on firmly solid legal ground by requiring companies to maintain safe workplaces through vaccinations. But still, that won't stop these Republicans from saying it, and the reason is because they know they can. And they operate in a closed media ecosystem, so even the fact checks don't have any impact. And that's indicative of a larger problem, and it relates to the Build Back Better Act too, which is that Republicans control the messaging in this country. They just do. And so they'll pretend that there's a worker shortage, even though there isn't, the same way that they pretended that the ACA was all about death panels, or that healthcare.gov was all about a botched rollout, or now that the Build Back Better Act is a big government power grab, even though it includes programs that have 60, 70, 80% support from Americans on both sides of the aisle. And because we don't have an equivalent to Fox News or OAN or Newsmax on the left, operating on a 24-hour-a-day schedule of gaslighting, even though Democrats have more popular ideas, those good ideas are worthless if people think that what we're selling is something altogether different because that's what they heard from Tucker Carlson. On the left, we are at an inherent disadvantage, and we always will be, precisely because we don't have anything like Fox News. And by the way, we shouldn't. But we also need to be better about going on offense, as opposed to spending all of our time defending ourselves from made-up attacks about worker shortages from vaccine mandates that would actually reduce worker shortages. And so with that said, knowing how important it is to not only debunk disinformation, but promote the truth about what our agenda does do, check out my interview with Congresswoman Jayapal, who's leading negotiations in the House on behalf of progressives for the Build Back Better Act. You can click the thumbnail on this screen or check out the interviews playlist on my YouTube channel.